Well, hello there, Tampa Bay, and welcome to the TBCN Sports Talk. I'm your host, Coach Chuck White, and my guest is Coach Dave Small. He grew up in Ireland, Indiana, and we have a lot we want to talk about pertaining to some of his exploits, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. But first of all, I'd like to say, Coach, welcome to the show.
You too.
Okay, well, you grew up in Ireland, and your first involvement in sports. Let's talk about that. When did you first get involved in any kind of sports, and what was it?
Well, Coach, coming from Indiana, being born in Indiana, you learn about basketball from the time you're big enough to, or old enough to realize that there's what's going on. So I learned at a very young age how to play basketball, and my dad was a good athlete, so I learned baseball. Football was kind of third rate, you know, that was not important in Indiana. We had this saying back when I was a kid that if you bounced the ball and it didn't bounce up at you, you threw it away, you know, so football was not that. But I started playing some organized basketball at in about the third grade, and baseball at about age 6. First grade, and basketball I played all through grade school and high school, and we had some very good ball clubs. Came out of a very small school. The enrollment of my high school, I think, was 138 students in 4 grades. The town was about 400 people, and we accomplished some things that a lot of schools in the state of Indiana never accomplished. Very fortunate to be with a group of guys that were very talented. We all were fundamentally sound in basketball, and we did things that we never thought we could do. So it was a very rewarding high school experience.
Coach, you think that you come from this great big old town, Ireland, Indiana. I understand if you're riding through there, if you blink your eye, you might miss it.
Well, that's true, Coach. I think only in the past maybe 3 or 4 years that they actually have a stoplight there now.
Wow.
But it's a small town farming community. I grew up on about 800 acres, and all I knew was corn and soybeans and cattle and hogs and some chickens, and milking some cows in the morning before you went to school, and milking them when you got home. So you had chores that kept you busy. But one thing that was fortunate enough that my dad, who was a good athlete himself, he wanted me to participate and not miss that. And had he been like some of the other fathers, didn't let their kids play because they needed them home to work on the farm. So, yeah, it was a little town, very special community. It was basically about 95% German background. So they took pride in what they did, and hard workers, and it was a great experience, just a great experience.
Now, you said at third grade, you started playing basketball. Did they have gymnasium then, or you played on outdoor courts like I did?
No, they had gymnasiums. That's the thing about Indiana. They have these huge gymnasiums, and
wow.
They started building really nice facilities back in the 1930s already. There was a high school which is 4 miles from mine. It was a larger high school. They had a gymnasium was built in 1933, and it held 4,500 people already. So the gymnasium that I started playing in was actually my high school gymnasium, and I started playing in there in 2nd, 3rd grade, and it held 2,500.
Wow.
And we only had 130 some kids in the whole school. So that was an example of how big the gyms were compared to the size of the town.
Now, what type of competition, what organization, what type of organization you have? Did you have different championships you played for, or you just get out there and freelance at recreation ball, or did you play for a state or city or championship?
No, Coach, what you had was, Indiana had 712 high schools.
Wow.
This is going back to 1963, okay? There's only half of that today, and the reason it happened that way is every small town in Indiana, every small town had a high school. And that's what made I know people have heard the phrase Hoosier hysteria. Well, that's what that is. That's the excitement about basketball in the high school, okay? So every town had a high school. So that's all they talked about. And we had conferences. My school was in the Patoka Valley Conference. And the Patoka Valley was a river that ran through southern Indiana. And all the schools, I think there were 12 other schools in our conference. And then when that was all over, the big party was playing for the state championship. And when you played for the state championship in Indiana, up until 1997, there were no classes. There was one class. And every year, it was a big deal to see who the David was going to be, so who was going to slay Goliath, okay? So that's where the excitement would come in, because everybody liked an underdog, okay? And the excitement of when those tournaments started, they would fill these gymnasiums that would hold anywhere from 7,000 to 10,000 people, okay? And that's where the crazy excitement came from.
Well, let's go back to this third grade basketball. What type of organization did they have? I may have missed that if you said it.
Well, we played among ourselves, okay, in third grade. It was more, at that level, it was more learning fundamentals from the coach. And believe it or not, it was the high school coach that taught us, okay? Because he knew that we would be coming up through the system. And he would have these clinics, and you would go out, and it would last, maybe 6-8 weeks. And then what you learned, you took home and did it on the outdoor court.
Did you have what they call, I know in Orlando when I was down there, they had what they call garage door basketball programs. All the dad's club, the boosters and all. If you couldn't afford to get one on your garage, they would put one up there, and all the kids had basketball goals attached to their garages. So.
Well, here's the thing about Indiana.
Boone High School.
Okay, Indiana is noted for seeing basketball goals on about anything. You'll see them on a tree. You'll see them on a garage. You'll see them on a barn. Anywhere. I had 2 basketball goals when I was growing up. One was on the side of a granary building where we stored grain.
Yeah.
And it had a little area that was as smooth as we could make it. And then I had another one that was in the barn in the hayloft when it would be raining or be too cold, because it would get cold up there. It'd sometimes get down to 0, and you didn't want to play out there when it was like that. So we had a place in the hayloft that we would clear the hay out and put the basket up there, and then we could shoot baskets in the winter. So, yeah, you saw baskets everywhere. I mean, of all types. So, and that's why kids from Indiana, they can shoot the ball so good. They learn how to at a young age and learn to do it right. And,
well, that's nice to know. Maybe we need some things like that around here in high school, but I think it's a different day, different time, and so many other things to distract you. But talk about your baseball experience coming up. When did you first start in 6th grade, you said?
I started playing again, in 6th grade, basically my neighbors. We had neighbors that were some of them a mile away, being out in the country. And we would get together and make a diamond on a
Cow pasture.
on a cow pasture, a hayfield.
Yeah.
And make it as smooth as we could make it. And we'd get 6, 8, 9 of us together. And my dad was a baseball player, so he taught us how to play the game. And then when I got a little older, I started playing in a junior league that they had. I had to drive about 20 miles. And then as I got a little older, at 14 or 15, I started playing American Legion baseball. And that was very, very helpful. But I was a pretty good baseball player. I was left-handed and pretty good hitter, pretty good pitcher. But it was a great learning experience in baseball. I mean, the coaches I had were good coaches and learned the game.
Well, you carried this over into junior high school and you continued further in college. You want to talk about the junior high school?
Well, in junior high school, again, the coach that I had was a high school coach. He coached down in the 7th and 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And you learn the game. You learn the fundamentals properly. And at that point, he knew what he had coming into the high school. And there's one thing about small town or small schools, as you know, you don't have a lot of people, okay? We had maybe 65 boys in the whole school. Well, about all 65 would come out for basketball because everybody wanted to be a part of it. You know, that was the game in town. In junior high, we played maybe 15 games, and the coach would coach, and then he knew, like I said, he knew what was coming up. And when you got to high school, he knew that you knew the fundamentals, and now it was learning the program. And that's why our team, our high school, was very successful.
But when you got to high school, you were very successful, as you said, and you were ranked in the top 15 of the entire state.
I was, my senior year, I was fortunate enough to be considered as one of the top 15 players in the state of Indiana. Came out of there with some good people back at that time, 1963. The guy who was Mr. Basketball that year, his name was Rick Jones. He was out of Muncie Central, and he went down and played at Miami and played for Bruce Hale at Miami. But I played many games with or against Bob Greasy. I don't know if you remember Bob Greasy. Bob Greasy came out of that area.
Yeah,
and
played with Miami.
Yeah, played many basketball and baseball games against him. So yeah, I was a pretty decent player, and got me a scholarship.
When the guys left there and went off, many of them went to professional basketball.
Well, we had, out of the area where I'm from, there's no professional players out of my high school, but there's some high school, another small high school, maybe 10, 12 miles from my high school. There were 2 NBA players came out of there. And then about 18 miles up the road was another high school where Larry Bird came from. So, and a few football players that are pros, and a few baseball players that turned pro.
Well, you couldn't find a better one than Larry Bird.
Well,
at Boston Celtics.
Yeah, it's funny, not funny, but it's ironic that his coach that he had was the coach, a first-year coach, when I was a senior in high school, and he coached against me. Okay, and then several years later, Larry came along, but he was Larry's coach and mentor.
Speaking of coaching, you did some coaching too. Can you remember far back when your first coaching job?
I came to Tampa. I played my college ball at Austin Peay State University in Clarksville, Tennessee. And when I graduated, my wife was in education and I was in education, and we wanted to come to Tampa, Florida. And so we moved to Tampa, Florida, and I got a job coaching at Monroe Junior High School down South Tampa. And that time frame, I happened to meet Herman Valdez, and Herman asked me a couple years later if I would like to help him over at Robinson, and he was basketball coach. I think he took John Pellegrino. I think he took his spot. And so I coached with Herman there. And then in 1971, I was asked to be the head coach at Tampa Bay Tech. And I was there for 4 years, and then had some good players and some good teams there. So yes, that was my first coaching.
Can you remember anybody from back at the junior high school? I know that's hard to go back to something there. Maybe some of the players or the coaches or somebody there. If not in the junior high school, maybe with Herman Valdez.
Well, at Monroe Junior High, I had some good athletes there. Probably the best athlete I ever had was Otis Rogers.
Oh,
and,
wow.
Yeah, and Otis was he was good all around. He was a good basketball player. He was a good baseball player. He was a great football player.
Yes.
You know, played tight end, and he went on to play at University of Tampa and then Iowa State, and then he played a couple years in the pros until he got hurt. And Franklin Williams was another player. Nick Ray went to Tulane, quarterback to Tulane, and then Nick stayed up in the New Orleans area and coached baseball up there. And guys like Billy Garcia, who coached here locally for many years. I think Billy may be retired now. I think he coached at Land O'Lakes High School for many years. And there's guys like Gavin Spreetsma, played football up at Florida. Jim Young, another great player. And they went on to play at Robinson, and that's why Robinson was so good back at that time.
Cooter Patterson, Charlie
Bradley.
Charlie Bradley and all those.
Yeah, I knew them very well.
Some of the records there.
Knew them very well, and actually got to play, after they had graduated, I got to play City League ball with them, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, there were some great athletes. When I was at Tampa Bay Tech, matter of fact, you recruited one of my players out of there, David Pugh.
David Pugh, right. He was a good one.
He played for you over at HCC. And,
right.
David he gave you everything.
Yes, sir.
He gave you 100%.
A little bit too much of fire.
He
had
did.
a lot of fire.
He did have a lot of fire. He did,
but he was a good player.
He was a good player, and had other players like Horace Lee was a good player, and guys like George Glover. George Glover, he may be 5 foot nothing, but he would really hustle and play and what have you. And Mike Mitchell. I think Mike's brother played at Hillsborough, and then Mike played for me at Tampa Bay Tech. But yeah, those were some fun times. It was some fun times. And getting back to when I came to Florida to coach, it was, I call it cultural shock, because coming from Indiana, I played in gyms. My high school gym was 2,500 people. And I played in a lot of gyms that were 6,000 and 7,000 people. So when I came to Tampa, and I was at Monroe Junior High, they didn't have a gym, and their high school, which was Robinson, didn't have a gym. So we used to, Herman Valdez said, well, you know, we practice over at the Marine base gym there on Gandy. And I said, really? They said, yeah, there's a gym. I said, there's a gym there? And they go, yeah. So my first time in that Marine base facility, I was like, we got to practice in there. It wasn't much bigger than the room we're in right now. Okay, and the out of bounds was the walls, and it was very tiny, and so the varsity would practice, the JV would practice, and then the junior high team got to practice. So a lot of times, I know you remember Jerry Durnan.
Oh, well, Jerry.
See, Jerry
He
was
just recently passed away, didn't he?
Jerry just recently passed on, but Jerry was the JV coach for Herman over there, and so he had to share. So it ended up, instead of taking so long for practice, we would share the court and scrimmage against each other, you know, just so we wouldn't have to be there till midnight, right. You know. But that was a shock to me to come down here, and I'm like, I'm going to coach basketball and they don't have a gym. So, you know, that, and then when I got a call from, I guess, Wayne Williamson about the job at Tampa Bay Tech, that was 1971, and I went out there and they had a brand new gymnasium. And I thought, this has got to be it, you know, so that's when I went to Tampa Bay Tech.
You told me you had one of your top assistants was a good friend of mine, Coleman Bell.
Coleman Bell.
Yes.
Coleman and I had a lot of good times together. He was a good coach, good teacher. He and I spent many hours together in the gym, teaching these kids how to play basketball. But yeah, Coleman and I were together about 3 years, I think. Mm-hmm. And I know he moved on and moved into administration, and I don't know, I haven't seen Coleman. And
yeah. Well, I see him sparingly. He's doing well. But anyway, you moved from Tampa Bay Tech.
I joined the New York Life Insurance Company.
Okay, that's it.
And they had a big office here. And there was a guy that graduated from Hillsborough High School that was in management with them by the name of Reggie Sedita. Mm-hmm. And Reggie recruited me. He was went with the New York Life, and Reggie recruited me, and I was with them for 17 years. And while I was with them, being a sports mind, I had a softball team that played competitively here in the Tampa area and throughout Florida, actually throughout the Southeast. We competed against some of the best that they had around here in softball. And Cofer Brothers was one of them, and Langston used parts, auto parts. But we were considered one of the better softball teams, and I did that for about 10 years. So it gave me a little bit of filling that coaching void.
Yeah. Well, there was a Clearwater Lumber Company or something. Yeah.
Well, you're talking maybe about the Clearwater Bombers now.
Bombers, yeah.
Now that was fast pitch.
Yes.
Now that was some serious stuff.
Oh
there.
Man! And this guy used to throw strikes from second base to home plate. Yeah, the pitcher, I can't think his name, but he was nationally renowned.
There's a guy that you and I both know, Jack Thompson. Mm-hmm. Jack Thompson used to pitch for him. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And now softball fast pitch is
serious stuff.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You know, that ball comes at you really quick.
Yes, sir.
A lot different than baseball because of the closeness.
Yes.
You know, but yeah, I played a little bit of that here in Tampa, maybe 1 year, but I didn't like it. It was all pitcher and catcher.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't get to score a lot of runs, mm-hmm. but the slow pitch softball gave me an opportunity to coach a little bit, and I had some good players.
Are you a member of any coaching organizations, anything that's, I understand some are going around town?
Well, coaches, as you know,
Legends?
we have the coaches group called the Legends.
Yeah, Coaching Legends.
Coaching Legends here in Hillsborough County, and we meet the first Wednesday of every month. And I enjoy it because I get to see a lot of the old guys that I hadn't seen in a long time, and kind of catch up and keep up with what's going on. But yeah, I'm involved in that, and that's really the only. I do follow high school basketball. I can't tell you how many games I see a year, and there's one school that I follow real close, and that my wife taught there for about 40 years. It's now called Cambridge Christian, over on North Urbana, and the coach there is a good friend of mine.
Coach, there's a book. I think they have some great stories in there, and you need to talk about that so our audience will know about that.
Yes, Chuck. In my senior year in high school, we accomplished something that had never been accomplished before and never will be accomplished before or after. It's a book that was written about the 1962-63 season. And it was a great story. And the name of the book is One Small Town, One Crazy Coach, because our coach had some very unique, motivating things that he used to motivate us. And we ended up going from a little town with nothing to all out of 712 schools, we made it to the Sweet 16, okay? And so the principal's son, who was 12 years old, who is now a professor at the University of Cincinnati, he decided to write a book. And the name of the book is One Small Town, One Crazy Coach. And it is full of some great stories. And anybody who loves sports will love this book. And I didn't write it, so I am in it, but I didn't write it.
Yeah. I understand the coach took his pants off at the game.
He sure, after the game, he promised if we won the sectional, he would take his pants off and throw them in the crowd. And he did. And that picture appeared in newspapers from Evansville to Louisville to Cincinnati to Detroit, Indianapolis, and Chicago. That hit the sports page in 1963 because that was just something that had never been done before.
Well, Coach, it's been a pleasure having you here on the show, and I'm sure our many viewers and listeners have gotten much from it. So we look forward to seeing you again sometime soon and have you back. So I want to say thank you and good luck.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good luck in your future endeavors. So that's it for our sports show today, and we hope you've enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. So be with us again on our next show right here on the Tampa Bay Community Network.